Third-party support and maintenance options, SAP's decision to raise support costs for its on-premise system, and the most important business processes to document during digital transformations. Those are just a few of the topics we're going to cover here in episode 179 of Transformation Ground Control.
Welcome to Transformation Ground Control. Ground Control. The podcast that covers everything related to digital transformation. This podcast features technology agnostic and international discussions related to digital strategy, software selection, implementation, change management, business process optimization, and everything else you need to know to make your digital transformation project successful. Whether you're embarking on an ERP implementation, supply chain transformation, or any other business or digital transformation, this podcast is for you. Now, here's your host, Eric Kimberling.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, welcome to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 179. My name is Eric Kimberling here at Darian Chwialkowski. Darian, thanks for joining us again today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This is the podcast that covers everything related to digital transformation, including the people, process, technology, and strategy sides of transformation. You can find new episodes every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com, and you can also see all the past episodes you might have missed at transformationgroundcontrol.com as well. The show is produced by Major Tom Productions, sponsored by Third Stage Consulting Group, which is the company that I'm the CEO of. And Third Stage Consulting is an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. And we've got an exciting show for you today. We're going to cover a lot of good stuff. We're going to talk about, to open up our segment, we're going to get to some audience social media questions that we've received via social media. And we'll also get into some newsworthy topics related to SAP's decision to raise support costs for its on-premises systems, and also how AI incident reporting shortcomings have caused some regulatory safety gaps. And we'll talk about those two newsworthy topics here today. And then later in the show, we'll have Matt Stava on the show from Spinnaker Support. He's the CEO of that company. And Spinnaker is a third-party software support and maintenance company. And he's going to be on the show talking about what customers' third-party support and maintenance options are, especially for those organizations that are on, say, SAP or maybe Oracle's, JD Edwards, or an old version of Microsoft Dynamics, basically any system that's being sunset and you're worried about continuing support past the vendor deadline. There is another option out there, and it's third-party support and maintenance. So we're going to have Matt on the show to really unpack that whole concept of third-party software support and maintenance and talk about what it means and how it works and where it's appropriate for clients and all that good stuff. And then finally, after we have Matt on the show, we'll talk about the most important processes to document during your digital transformation. So we'll get into that topic in the third segment here later today. But before we do that, what are some of the social media questions we've received, or some of the questions we've received on social media, I should say?
Yeah, so the first one is from YouTube, and it is from the presentation that you did at Epicor conference about supply chain and AI. This question is, how much of supply chain management field will actually be automated away?
Yeah, it's a good question. One thing I mentioned in that YouTube video, and I've mentioned it, I believe, in this podcast as well multiple times, is that supply chain management is an area that is ripe for AI. I mean, it's got a lot of inefficiencies and a lot of data crunching and a lot of details and complexities that make AI a good potential solution for supply chain management. If humans had been doing a good job with supply chain management in general, over the last few decades, I would say that, okay, maybe AI might now displace those humans. But I think humans have really struggled to manage supply chains well. And I think AI is just such a powerful tool now that it's just going to make supply chain managers and supply chain professionals more valuable to organizations. So I actually don't think it's going to cause as much displacement as one might think. And I think supply chain management, despite all the efficiency gains and the effectiveness gain potential that AI provides, I think it's just going to make people better at their jobs. It's not like, if we were in a position where supply chain managers had really perfected their job, they're doing a great job, and now AI is just going to come in and replace what they were doing, then maybe you'd see some job loss, but that hasn't really been the case. I think we've struggled as supply chain practitioners to manage supply chains well, and AI is just going to help us do it better. So I don't think in the short term it's going to have a huge impact, but it is a valid question, something certainly to keep an eye on.
Yeah, for sure. Our next question comes from LinkedIn, and it is from one of the cartoons that Eric posted to his LinkedIn. It is, This is certainly an issue to consider. However, so is an outage of an on-prem solution. The advantage of a cloud provider is that they will have the best skills available to fix the issue, whereas those with on-premise solution may not have, especially if the business is only small to mid-size. Eric, I wanted to get your take on this. Do you agree with the comment mostly, or do you disagree? What is your take?
Yeah, so just to add some additional context, the cartoon that I posted is about it's sort of a lighthearted view of cloud software outages and how basically calling attention to the fact that even cloud providers have their bad days, if you will, or their outages. And the risk or the problem with that isn't that you wouldn't expect that to happen occasionally, because it does happen occasionally with really most software or most cloud providers. But the thing to note is that the stakes are higher, because now instead of just one company going down, now you've got, if you've got thousands of your customers that can't ship product or can't, complete transactions or whatever in the system, that's a pretty big deal, and that's a pretty massive impact. So yes, on one hand, they're probably going to get things up and running faster. They've got more to lose as a cloud provider. That looks bad, and it's not something they want to see, their system go down. So yes, they are going to correct those things faster, but we also have to recognize the downside is that there's more risk, because more companies are exposed to that vulnerability.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. But I'm excited to kind of dive into the newsworthy articles that we have this week.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a couple of really good ones that I know you wanted to cover. We'll get to that here in just a second. We're going to get into SAP's decision to raise the support cost for its on-premise solutions. And then we'll also talk about some shortcomings of AI and how incident reporting has caused some regulatory safety issues. So we'll cover those two things here in just a moment. And then later in the show, after we get through those newsworthy topics, we'll get to our first guest, who is Matt Stava, the CEO of Spinnaker Support. And he'll be on to talk about third-party support and maintenance options. And then later in the show, we'll also talk about business process management, which processes you should document or the most important to document during your transformation. So stick around. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control. If you're using SAP, Oracle, or Microsoft Dynamics, or any other sort of legacy system, you might be feeling pressure to migrate to a more modern version of those legacy systems. However, there's another option out there. You can look at third-party support as a way to extend your life cycle and save money on your legacy systems while you figure out your own IT roadmap that fits your schedule. So there's a company out there called Spinnaker Support that supports, among others, SAP, Oracle, and Microsoft customers. And in general, Spinnaker customers are going to save 60% on their annual support maintenance. They're going to get extended lifecycle support. So these are support levels that help organizations take control of their IT roadmap and give them an option that extends beyond the sunset period for what SAP, Microsoft, Oracle, and other software vendors are offering. So that's one of the things that's the beauty, is not only you're saving money, but it also gives you an opportunity to work past and have a roadmap that works past the timeline that the software vendors have given. In addition, you're going to deal with or leverage expertise from consultants and support professionals that have over 20 years of experience on average. You're going to get world-class security. You're going to get proactive support. So it's actually not just fixing stuff that breaks, but also ensuring that you get more value out of your system. And Spinnaker also provides global availability. So it's really important that you check out this as an option. There's third-party support providers like Spinnaker that can give you an option that takes some of that pressure off to have to feel like you have to upgrade your system right now. So to check out this concept and to learn more, I encourage you to read a white paper that we've provided for each of the listeners of this show. It's called The Skeptic's Guide to Third-Party Maintenance and Support. So there's a link in the description field of this podcast, so be sure to check that out. You can download that. You can learn more about what third-party support is, learn more about the advantages and what some of the common frequently asked questions are, and really just address any questions you might have. So be sure to check it out. It's from Spinnaker Support. You can download that paper for free, and hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. I'm gonna leave it all out there, and I'm gonna leave it all out there. Welcome back to episode number 179 of Transformation Ground Control. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting, and we're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. I'm here at Darian Chwialkowski. You can find new shows or new episodes of the show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. You can also find past episodes of our show All 178 past episodes, in fact, you can find at transformationgroundcontrol.com. So be sure to check that out. So we've got a couple newsworthy items involving SAP and another one involving AI. What have you got in store for us, Darian?
Yeah, so the first one is about how SAP's decision to raise their support costs for on-premise software to encourage their customers to transition to their cloud offerings instead. After a decade-long freeze, SAP has increased the support cost by 3.3% in 2023, and they announced plans to increase it by another 5% in 2024. Additionally, they have announced innovations including new ERP capabilities, AI innovations, and sustainability solutions that will only be available to its cloud offerings and not for on-prem customers. The strategy is obviously aiming to get people off the on-premise solutions and into the cloud based solutions like Rise with SAP and Grow with SAP. Eric, what are your thoughts on this approach that SAP is taking on basically excluding on-premise customers and also raising their costs?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, I suppose it's their right to do that. I just don't know. I mean, I feel like SAP's walking a fine line or sort of a tightrope with doing what they need to do to sort of get all of their resources focused on one version of their software, which is ultimately, I think, where they want to go is S/4HANA public cloud is sort of, I think, where they would love to have every customer on public cloud. But they are struggling as it is to get customers to private cloud, which, for those that don't know, private cloud, the difference between private cloud and public cloud is more of a SaaS multi-tenant model, whereas private cloud is more kind of a hybrid where you have your own instance of the software hosted by one of SAP's partners, cloud providers, but you still have your own instance and you can basically do whatever you want as far as customization and development and things like that. So they've moved a fair number, an okay number of customers to private cloud, but they haven't moved as many customers to public cloud as they'd like. So I think they're trying to just fast track things by making it more and more enticing. They started by, like you said, offering new capabilities that you could only find in their cloud solutions, which I'd view that as the carrot approach. Like, hey, look at all this cool stuff we're doing over here. Why don't you come over and, do the upgrade? Whereas this is more the stick approach where they're saying, okay, well, if you're still not going to do it, we'll just raise the price and assume that you're going to, force the decision to move you to the cloud. And I suppose if you're SAP, they're probably willing to bank on the fact that they're going to lose some customers over it, but they're probably going to come out net ahead because they're going to move more of their customers to the cloud. They might lose a few along the way to a competitor, but they seem to be banking on the fact that it'll work. I just think they're burning up a lot of goodwill with customers, and fortunately for SAP, but unfortunately for customers, SAP has a very loyal customer base, and they're willing to some degree to put up with this sort of thing more so than they would with another vendor. So good news, bad news, I suppose SAP can get away with it. I'd say better, more so than some of the other vendors out there, but I don't know if it's the strategy I would pursue. But then again, I'm not running a big global company like SAP, so I'm sure they have their own pressures and targets they're trying to hit, that this is the way to do it. But I just think there might be some collateral damage from a customer satisfaction and a customer goodwill perspective.
For sure. And speaking of the customer side, I kind of want to get your take or advice that you would give customers that are maybe currently on SAP on-prem software and are experiencing these things that SAP is pushing onto them. What would you suggest, or what is your advice for these customers?
Well, I think, one is, the third-party support. I mean, it's actually a timely topic that you bring up here with SAP because, they're raising the support costs for their on-premise system. So they're just making it more appealing now to go look at companies like Spinnaker. And the CEO of Spinnaker is going to be on here in just a few minutes on this podcast. And Spinnaker provides lower cost third-party support. And so, we'll talk with Matt here in a few minutes about, the kinds of support they're providing and what your options are. But I think what it's doing is now it could actually backfire to where SAP thinks it's going to get a bunch of customers to move over to the cloud, and maybe it will, but it could also mean that a bunch of SAP customers are just going to stay on-prem and move to a third-party support option that's lower cost and isn't kind of forcing them out of their legacy system by 2027, 2030, whatever the deadline is, or whatever the deadline is for any given vendor. So So anyway, so I think with SAP in this example, it could actually backfire, but I suppose the jury's still out on that.
For sure, that makes sense. I want to switch gears here and go into more of an AI topic, which is our next newsworthy topic of the day. This next topic or article discuss the current gaps in the AI incident reporting and the regulatory challenges that arise from these deficiencies. The key points of this article include critical consequences like failures from generative AI that have significant safety impacts, highlighting the need for robust incident reporting mechanisms. It also highlights regulatory gaps. There are notable gaps in how AI technologies are monitored compared to other safety critical systems, and then the need for standards in AI. This article especially emphasizes the importance of establishing comprehensive standards and protocols for AI incident reporting to ensure safety and accountability for AI. Eric, how do you think organizations can better prepare for all AI related incidents to ensure timely and accurate reporting?
Well, I think this story is a good reminder of how AI is not perfect and AI needs to be taught, and AI relies on good data, and AI consumes and needs to consume a lot of data and a lot of accurate data. So there's a lot of prerequisites to making AI work for you. And it sounds like in this case, there may be some instances where humans sort of let their hand off the steering wheel too soon with AI and just let AI kind of do its thing without, sort of validating and improving and teaching AI. It kind of reminds me, I don't know why, but AI kind of reminds me if you had a little baby, it was like a genius, super smart baby, but it didn't know how to talk yet and it was still learning. It's a genius baby, but you've got to teach it. It's got to grow. It's got to develop. And it may not take 18 years like a human, but you do need to take some time to grow and develop those AI models. So that's how I view AI. It's sort of like in its infancy, and you've got to teach it, grow it, help it get better. And once you do that, then you can start to back off a little bit. But there's still, I think it just highlights the need for human intervention and how humans and AI have to work together and coexist to bring out the best of both.
Yeah, for sure. What are the potential consequences of not addressing these regulatory gaps in AI incident reporting if we don't do it now?
Well, yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it's if we don't do it, then governments throughout the world will decide for us how we're going to do it. So I think, self-regulating, to me is a more proactive way of sort of getting ahead of it, to where the government doesn't feel the need to step in, or governments throughout the world don't feel the need to step in and regulate, although they still may, even if we do self-regulate. But I would say it's less likely that there's going to be an overreaction or overcorrection from the government or governments throughout the world. And all it takes is one, major government entity like the EU or the US or China or whatever. One major government entity regulating AI would sort of change everything, because you'd have to, if you're going to be a global AI company, you're going to have to comply with global laws. So that's my opinion, but who knows? I mean, it's I think there's so much hype around AI right now and so much concern. And the minute people start losing jobs, if they do start losing jobs as a result of AI, or it's directly attributed to AI, then I think then the government might get even more involved. So there's a lot of risk there, but a lot of uncharted territory for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like your analogy goes even further, in my head at least, of how AI is in its infancy right now. And if you don't start to parent it, or humans don't step in and help it grow up and become self-regulating, that's when I feel like we'll see more issues with it.
Yeah, you'll have more lapses or problems caused by AI and that sort of thing. That's why it's kind of interesting how I think it's like Elon Musk and some others are sort of calling, or they over in recent months or over the last year or whatever, they've been calling for like a slowdown in the whole AI arms race, just kind of slow things down because it's changing so fast and impacting society so fast. I think that's part of their concern too, why they kind of want to see more guardrails in place for AI. And I think Elon Musk has been particularly alarmist about AI and some of the concerns around it, some of the concerns he has around it as well.
For sure. Yeah, I remember we talked about that a few episodes back now, about how Elon Musk was raising concerns about AI. So make sure to check out that episode if you haven't.
Yeah, and I'll keep, on a monthly basis, I'll keep messaging him on Twitter X to try and get him to be on the show. So far, no luck, but we'll keep trying. If anyone knows Elon Musk, I'd love to have him on here. that'd be pretty cool. So, but until then, we'll just talk about him. We'll talk about him every episode or so.
Yeah, exactly. Until he comes on.
Right, exactly. Cool. Well, that's good stuff. I'm excited to shift gears and kind of come back to this whole, your earlier newsworthy topic around SAP raising cost of its on-premise support. Coming back to that, our next guest is going to talk about third-party support and maintenance options. So that's going to be a really interesting conversation. A lot of organizations don't realize that they have this option, or they think that they can't move their support away from their direct vendor. And as we'll discuss, there are low cost, high value, high touch sorts of ways that you can extend your support past whatever deadline the vendor's giving you. And it also just gives you a little more breathing room to figure out how you're going to move off your on-premise systems and into a cloud solution or a more modern cloud solution, if that's what you choose to do. So we're going to have Matt Stava on the show talking about, he's the CEO of a company called Spinnaker Support. He's going to be on talking about third-party support options and what it means to you. So be sure to stick around. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control.
If you are involved in any sort of digital transformation or business change initiative, you'll want to download the Digital Transformation Report. With its comprehensive overview of business and technology trends and best practices, this report is a must-have guide for any transformation project or executive team. Download this free report by visiting Third Stage Consulting at thirdstage-consulting.com. You can also visit our website to learn more about us or download independent reports, videos, and other best practices. Again, visit thirdstage-consulting.com today to learn how you can take your transformation to the third stage of success.
Are you looking for ways to promote your product or service to enterprise technology decision makers and influencers throughout the world, like the ones who listen to this podcast? Major Tom Productions creates media, events, and influencer marketing for B2B technology providers. Our productions are exciting, educational, disruptive, and effective. Most importantly, they create results. Our content is unlike any other in this industry, engaging, influential, and trusted by technology buyers and influencers throughout the world. Each month, our productions reach hundreds of thousands of targeted buyers and decision makers who trust and engage with our honest and tech-agnostic content. With long-tail viral results and engagement with our content, Major Tom Productions provides a way to reach your target market and create awareness, calls to action, and a connection with potential customers. So collaborate with us today. Learn how we can feature your product or service on podcasts such as Transformation Ground Control, Journey to S/4HANA, and Journey to Dynamics 365. We can also feature your brand on our YouTube channel called Digital Transformation with Eric Kimberling, which boasts over 100,000 subscribers and over 2 million video views per year. You can also participate in our in-person events, including our Digital Stratosphere Conference. Contact us today to learn more. We can tailor a marketing campaign that works for you. We look forward to helping more people learn more about and become engaged with your brand.
Welcome back to episode number 179 of Transformation Ground Control. My name is Eric Kimberling here with Darian Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of the show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com, and you can also find past episodes at that same website as well. The show is sponsored by Third Stage Consulting, which is an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journey. So thanks for being here today. Excited for our next guest. He's a first-time guest on the show. It's Matt Stava, someone I've actually known for a long time in the industry. We're both of our companies and our residences are based in Denver, Colorado. So we live very close to one another. We work very close to one another, coincidentally. And it just so happens that in addition to us being a global consulting firm, he is running a global support organization that focuses on third-party support. And that company is called Spinnaker Support. So all that being said, Matt, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.
Great to have you on the show. Finally, it's you're a guest I've actually wanted to have on here for quite some time because you sort of helped pioneer this third party support and maintenance space. But what can you tell us before we get into some of these questions here that I've got for you and that the audience is going to have for you? Tell us a little bit about you, yourself, your journey, and about Spinnaker as well, if you don't mind.
Yeah, you bet. I'll go through that. I started my career at Anderson Consulting. It kind of shows my age a little bit here, but now it's called Accenture. And I got started right out of college. One of those early folks that they bring on to these big, kind of unload the bus, so to speak, in these big projects back in those days. Did that for about 4.5 years, kind of got my manager stripes. And then I ended up leaving there and going to another firm that was really all ex-Anderson folks, pretty small. And at that point, I led their supply chain kind of implementation practice area, if you will, across all the different platforms that were software packages back then. Got a lot of experience very early in my life, kind of thrown in the deep end, if you know what I mean, both with Anderson and then with this other firm. Stayed with them for about 4 years. They ended up getting bought by Perot Systems in those days. Now that's owned by Dell. But I kind of realized I'm going to hang my own shingle, or I'm going to go back to Accenture at that point, and decided to hang a shingle in 2002 and started out doing supply chain consulting because that's literally what I knew how to do. And as many things do, they evolved quite a bit. We kept the consulting business, and it's actually still going and going strong. I'm out of it entirely now, but then along the way, we ended up acquiring a remanufacturing and redistribution business that was bringing product back in, kind of internal supply chain stuff, reverse supply chain, I should say. And they had that business. We had the consulting. We had this returns management business, and then we had the opportunity here in Denver with the local JD Edwards team of a third-party provider that was really get shut down. They were owned by SAP at the time. And SAP and Oracle were in a little bit of a tussle of a lawsuit around this space. And we had the opportunity to bring the JD Edwards group over, and that was in 2008. And that's really when this thing really started to take off for us. I mean, there was some early years, right, kind of slower, if you will. But at the end of the day, that's really what the company is now. So I've jettisoned all the other businesses that I've ever was involved with, and full time obviously in this one, and it's a blast. I absolutely love it. It's grown a lot, and it's been fun to watch what we're able to do for customers out there in the world. And it's and I know we'll get into it a little bit too, Eric, but it's global. It's got people all over the world working 24/7, 365, and just the value that we provide customers has been really exciting, and I've got a lot of good stories on some of those things. So it's pretty cool. But that's really where we've gotten, and that's where we are today. So.
That's great. That's an awesome journey. How did you make that transition from supply chain and consulting into ERP? I know you mentioned you acquired that JD Edwards support practice, but was that sort of an accident? You sort of stumbled into an opportunity, or did you deliberately want to move into the ERP space?
Well, I think the ERP space is large, and back then the supply chain space wasn't quite as big, although it's grown a lot in since that period of time. But the ERP space we knew was very large. What I wanted to get into was really a larger market, ERP being one of them, and certainly one that we were right there on the side of, right? Because any supply chain application integrates into JD Edwards, integrates into Oracle, SAP, these different things. So you were right on the periphery of all these things anyway. Had a lot of experience with that. But the recurring kind of model of it all on the support side is something that I was really trying to get the company moved into that direction. And fortunately, knock on a lot of wood, it's been pretty successful for us. So
yeah, that's great. Yeah. What do you like most about the company, about Spinnaker so far?
I'll tell you what, there's a few things. One is just the customer satisfaction is really cool. I mean, what we do for our clients out there, it's not just save them a couple dollars, save them a couple bucks or shekels or anything like that. It's really more the value we provide. So I'll give you an example. I mean, it's almost like a concierge doctor. You don't even know how to handle them. You know what I mean? I mean, when we start with a customer, oftentimes they've got 30, 40, 80 different issues, I'll call it, or questions or inquiries into Oracle or into SAP, that SAP or Oracle just come back and said, either hire a consulting firm, they'll help you out, or that's not going to get fixed ever, just wait, maybe in a version in 3 years or something like that. And so customers kind of get stuck, and you learn to deal with that. It's a little bit like a laptop has a little quirk to it. You just learn to work around that quirk, right? Mm-hmm. These customers out there just kind of get these issues sitting there. So day one, literally the first thing we say is send all those over as issues. We'll log those into our system, and we start working those things off. And it's amazing in 2-3 months, something like that these things get solved. It's really incredible to watch, and all of a sudden customers are just doing backflips that they can get these things done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, having that kind of impact in filling that void with what software vendors are able to provide themselves, I think is super fascinating.
That's right.
So let's start off like real fundamental basic stuff for maybe those of us that don't know what third-party support is. Can you kind of explain the model? Like what exactly is third-party support, and how is that different from what a software vendor is going to provide to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's like you said, it's very fundamental, obviously. The third-party support market is effectively, companies buy licenses, right? And they pay $10 million for licenses with Oracle, whatever it is. And then you've got that stream of maintenance that Oracle, charges you annually. So every year, then you've got to pay $2.2 million on that, 22%. It ranges, I think, from 19 to 22, something like that. And you just put that into your IT budget. And next thing you know, you're just paying that every year. That's a lot of why the value of Oracle, the value of SAP is so high. It's that maintenance stream. It's not necessarily the license sale itself. So once you have that, then you've got a support problem, right? You've got to figure out how to maintain those systems and keep them up and running. So you hire a managed services group, for example, to help you really do the care and feeding every day. What we've done is we've come in and said, listen, you don't have to pay that $2 million anymore. You can come over to us. We save our customers on average around 60% off of that number. So yes, there's a big savings. And so customers that are in some sort of duress or distress, it's a very helpful, handy thing to have in terms of a tool in the tool belt. But effectively, we're saying cut off that support with Oracle or SAP, switch it over to us, and here's the things that we can do for you. So there's a few things you get from the vendor that you can't live without, so to speak. One of them is the tax and regulatory support. So if you're in Japan and you've got a depreciation table and that depreciation schedule changes from the Japanese government, you need to make sure that gets programmed into your system. So we've got a whole team of people that do nothing but research tax and regulatory issues out there, changes out there, and make sure we get those into the customer system. So that's very important. The other one is security, the security patches. And so we've got a solution for security patches that is really beyond what even the vendor can provide themselves. We've had a lot of third-party validation of this security solution. So that's a big one too that you need to get. The one item that we can't provide is we don't own the software. We don't own the IP, and we have no rights to that IP. And so as part of the process of switching over from a vendor to a third-party provider like us is you want to do an archive. You want to bring down out of the cloud, out of Oracle or SAP's library, all the patches, upgrades, and changes that you have the rights to. You've paid your maintenance stream. You might not have ever downloaded those things because you only download it when you need it. But we go through and we have an archiving process that we walk through with our clients to make sure we've got the software that you have the rights to, that you paid for. But once you cut over, you lose the rights to that software in the future. So many of our customers, most of all of them, are at a platform level where they feel very comfortable. Like, some of them say, hey, I can't do it this year. I'm going to switch over next year. I've got to upgrade to this one version of a database or one version of an application. Once I get there, then I'm comfortable moving on to a third party, because we can't provide the upgrades any further unless they're in the archive that we've got. So there's some benefits and some drawbacks. That's one of them. But certainly, from our perspective, people make that switch over. They get a couple of bucks of savings, which is terrific, but they stay for the service. Like I said earlier, they just can't believe that service really exists out there. And so that savings then can really be driven into a lot more value added applications, migrations, transitions that a customer wants to do inside. A CIO now can fund projects to really value the business or give value to the business that he wasn't or she wasn't able to do before. So it's good. It's really cool to watch that as well.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I always thought of third-party support and maintenance like Spinnaker. I always thought of it as a cost savings play, which it is. But
it is. Sure.
What you're saying is it sounds like the added value of just basically getting more functionality, more capabilities, and more alignment with what your needs are. It sounds like that could be even greater than the cost savings itself.
It really is. I mean, I think they come for the cost savings and stay for the service, if you know what I mean, right? They realize this is a good play. This is something we should be doing. Gartner and Forrester and some of these large analyst firms out there follow this. Gartner has full-time analysts just following the third-party maintenance market now, support market. And so we get a lot of, opportunities kind of through that. But the validation is there that this is a tool in the tool belt that CIOs should be considering. And so there's some timing elements that kind of go along with that. And something we work with prospects every day, all day on. But they don't realize the service could be that good, if that makes sense, right? And that's getting back to why I really enjoy it. It's really fun to watch that, kind of hear that result out of some of the CIOs that I meet with.
Yeah. Now, what about the software vendors and how they sort of fit into this? I mean, first of all, I have to ask you, what do software vendors think of this model? I mean, do they like it, or do they see it as more of a threat?
Yeah, it's a great question. They're not terribly excited about it, right?
Because you're cutting into their revenue.
We're cutting into their revenue, right? But there's some clear lines, right, in terms of what you can and can't do with respect to the software vendors. We know what those lines are. We've had varying degrees of relationships with the vendors over the years, but nothing real specific or direct at all. It's something that they've openly stated. The third-party market is something out there that's valid, that people can do. I understand it. We get it. It kind of creates an off-ramp for some of these customers out there of them. It creates a little bit of an off-ramp, and then sometimes we get back onto it a little bit as well and help them get back to the software vendor. That's not the end of the world for us as well. Sometimes they go back and they say, hey, we just want to get the latest thing. They go back for a year or two, and then they'll switch back onto third-party maintenance and bring their application back to us. So
that's
a lot of different scenarios.
I'm here with Matt Stava from Spinnaker Support, talking about third-party software support and maintenance options. We've got a lot more to cover with Matt, but first we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control. I recently published my first book. It's called The Final Countdown: Strategies to Reach the Third Stage of Digital Transformation. And I wrote this book because I really wanted to find a concise way to share some of my knowledge around digital strategy and how to get started on a digital transformation journey. So in this book, I cover 3 different sections. I cover the people, process, and technology aspects of transformation, with the idea that it's meant to be a starting point, a launching pad for organizations and team members that are going through digital transformations. So I encourage you to buy this book. You can get it electronically, you can get it paperback, or you can get it in hard copy, as I'm holding here in front of you. You can get it by going to thefinalcountdown.com. You can also search for it on Amazon if you shop at Amazon. Otherwise, just go to thefinalcountdown.com. Love to hear your feedback on this book as well. So I hope you check it out and hope you enjoy.
I'm excited to share our newly released 2024 Digital Enterprise Operations Report. This free download is available on the Third Stage website at thirdstage-consulting.com. This report is truly packed full of technology-independent and agnostic insights for your project to ensure that you're strategically optimized for success. Download your copy today with the QR code in front of me or visit our website for more details.
These things take time, mom and dad, they have a good life. But what am I gonna do with mine?
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode 179. My name is Eric Kimberling here at Darian Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. And the show is sponsored by Third Stage Consulting, which is an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. And I'm here with Matt Stava from Spinnaker Support. We're chatting about third-party software support and maintenance options. So speaking of the vendors then, and kind of who owns the rights to the software, like you said, or who owns the IP? You mentioned that you don't own the IP, which is totally understandable. Of course you don't. I don't think anyone would expect that you do. But what do you say to people that say, well, why would I use a third-party support option even if I save money and even if I could get more value? I'm worried that you're not going to have the same knowledge in that direct line of sight into the software vendor, the people actually creating the software, the people that created the software. How do you guys respond to that, or what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I mean, if you really, it's a little bit like, buying a Lexus from the Lexus dealership and you have a 3-year warranty or a 1-year warranty, whatever your warranty is. Lexus obviously built the car. They know how the car operates, right? But then some of the best Lexus maintenance guys inside that maintenance shop probably went down the street and started their own shop. And so they actually know more than Lexus themselves. They're some of the best maintenance providers out there. And that's really the team that we've assembled. We've got several hundred engineers around the world that have anywhere from 15 to literally 30 years of experience inside Oracle or SAP. They know and they've seen just about every issue that's ever come up. Much of the support mechanisms now inside SAP and inside Oracle are self-service anyway. You're literally logging in, identifying the problem, trying to figure out which patch to download to actually update, and that is something that we just kind of do every day, all day. So it's something that we're very used to doing for these customers.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because the Lexus analogy, it's a really interesting one, because I was actually thinking about all these different examples in the consumer world. You think about, like you said, Lexus and cars, even just like your Apple iPhone. You could buy Apple accessories that are produced by Apple, or you could buy tons of different third-party ones.
That's right.
And no one really bats an eye at that. But it's interesting how in this enterprise technology space, it just seems like more of not a novelty, but it seems like a newer thing, at least in my opinion, because it hasn't been around nearly as long as software vendors have been around. So has it taken a while for this model that you guys have sort of created here? Is it taken a while for that to catch on, or for you guys to recognize that need, because vendors are sort of locked in and they want to keep that lock on customers, and it's just harder to gain the momentum that you guys have gained? Or what do you think, why do you think there's sort of that disconnect between the way things work in this enterprise tech space versus what we see every day in our everyday life?
That's a good question. I in the early days, Eric, if you go back, 10, 15 years ago, when we all kind of got started in this business, you were doing a lot of education, trying to effectively teach companies, really educate companies and CIOs and their directs on what this model even is. Can you really do it? Is it valid? What's the vendor going to do to us? Things like that. I would say over the last 6 or 8 years, it has become much more mainstream in terms of, and part of that's, the following Gartner's given us and some of that stuff. So that's certainly, it's become a lot easier. And like I said, companies understand that this is an option out there. And so we get a lot of phone calls. We get a ton of phone calls trying to understand what the model is and what we can do for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've got a question that's going to build on that last point here in just a second. Yeah. It's a great segue, but I do want to just turn to the audience real quickly and sort of recognize where people are joining from today.
Yeah.
I want to say hello to a few people. Someone on LinkedIn is from the UK. Sorry, I don't see your name, but hello. Jeff Brown from Naples, Florida, in coming off LinkedIn here. Also on LinkedIn, we have someone from New York City. So thank you for being here today. So just a few examples of where people are joining from today. So thank you for everyone attending here. And then I want to say hello to Kashif, who says ERP systems are the backbone of so many businesses, but keeping them running smoothly can be a challenge. Looking forward to learning more about our options for support and maintenance on this live session. So thank you. Great. Hopefully you are learning about your options so far on this live session. So I want to, and again, audience questions, love to hear your questions. Anything you want to talk about, please bring it up, especially as it relates to third-party support and maintenance would be ideal, since that's our topic here today. But I wanted to ask you, Matt, sort of a burning question that I think is on a lot of people's mind. It's certainly on mine. It's on a lot of our clients have this in mind, but customers are struggling with this whole migration to the cloud. You've got SAP saying, hey, you need to be off ECC by 2027, and then we're going to cut off support. Oracle, Microsoft Dynamics is giving till, I think, 2027 or 2030, maybe it is now, for Great Plains. And they're all sort of setting these deadlines, which makes sense.
And they push them out a little bit, right? But they're trying to force people onto the next item inside their portfolio.
Yeah, exactly. And, I don't know about you, but me personally, and look, having been in the space for a while, just like you have been, it feels a little shady to me that, software vendors can say, hey, I know you've got all your operations and all your data in our system, but guess what? We're telling you have to get off that and you have to upgrade to something different.
Yeah.
That's a topic for another time, I suppose, is whether or not that's the right thing, whether or not the industry should be doing that.
Sure.
But what does that do for your model as far as the services you're providing customers? Are you seeing a lot of customer demand from people that are saying, hey, I don't want to necessarily move to the new version of Oracle or SAP by whatever their deadline is, their arbitrary deadline? I want to sort of preserve and extend the life cycle of my current software. Sort of how are you seeing customers navigate that forced migration to the cloud, and how do you guys fit into that equation?
Yeah, I mean, these vendors put a roadmap out. They say you need to march on this roadmap, and here's the dates in which you're going to do this. And so they really define for their customers what that roadmap is. And that roadmap, that systematic change inside their business, affects a lot of things. I mean, they've got a lot of capital inside the development cycles of putting that system in. They've got all their people trained, the business processes around that. Just the implications are pretty large. And so when they force a change onto a company, a lot of companies, nobody wants to be pushed into a certain roadmap that they don't want to be a part of. Some companies are all in on the roadmap, and they're partnering with the vendors, and they work that out, and that's fine. But there's a lot out there that say, whoa, let me have my own roadmap. Let me put together my own. And the world, as you mentioned here, is evolving so rapidly, right? There's cloud solutions out there that are much better than what a vendor has for a particular function. HR, for example, right? There's some really good cloud solutions out there. So maybe they rip the HR out of an SAP, out of an Oracle, and give it to a cloud. My point is, there's a lot of best of breed that people are trying to put together. It's kind of come back around, right? It was best of breed was a fad at one point, then kind of one vendor make it a little easier, and now you're kind of seeing back to the best of breed, especially on these cloud applications and these kind of point solutions, if you will. So what we tell our CIOs and what we tell our prospects is, listen, this is an opportunity for you to take that roadmap and put it into your own control. And whether you end up on an S/4HANA or you end up in Oracle's cloud solutions, great, but at least you do it on your own timeline. And so we can take your on-prem systems that you run today, that you've got all that capital, all those people, all those processes built around. You can literally run those as long as you want to. And again, take that roadmap back into your own control and make those decisions later at the right time for you, not at the time the vendor tells you to make it. And so that's been that freedom that you allow those companies and those IT departments to have to control their own destiny, so to speak, is not lost on a lot of people. It's really something that's part of that value proposition I was talking about earlier as well. Yeah. Is what makes these CIOs so happy that they can take the control back, save a couple dollars, get better support. Yeah, great. But now I've got control, and now we can move down the path we want to move down and not be forced.
Yeah. What's interesting too is that there's so many companies, as you mentioned. There's a lot of companies that aren't getting the value out of the systems they have. So you've got that dynamic happening, and then in parallel, you have this dynamic of the software vendors having a lot of these software vendors like SAP, Oracle, Microsoft. I'll call those three out in particular. Sure. They don't have a fully mature cloud offering yet. I mean, they're still developing it, and in a few years this will be a moot point. But right now, where we stand, they're talking about AI. They're talking about all these advanced capabilities. But there's a lot of stuff they're still working on, just getting from their legacy on-prem system over to the cloud, and they still haven't finished that transition. And so, for a lot of customers, it's like you look at that and say, okay, well, the products are still very much a work in progress over here. Over here, we've got this software we've had for however many years, and we've never gotten the full value out of it. So to your point, let's operate on our own roadmap. Let's save some money along the way, and let's get some more business value. And then by 5 years down the line, maybe then it's the right time for you to start migrating and those dynamics.
The cloud is a funny word, and you know this better than anybody, Eric. I mean, it's a wide spectrum of a word, if you know what I mean, right? There's taking your on-prem and putting it into an Azure or an AWS. Are you in the cloud? Well, your systems are in the cloud, right? So that's good. It's managed by somebody else. That's been going on for a long time. But truly moving, your financials, for example, or your supply chain, manufacturing, distribution applications into a cloud environment in which you can't make changes, you can't make process changes, you can't make customizations. That's a big departure, right? That's going to be a pretty big leap for a lot of people to put their financials truly into a cloud system. We run NetSuite, right? So we actually run an Oracle product of all things, and it works really well for us given the size we are. But if you're a multi-billion-dollar, public entity or a federal government or something like that, this is going to be a pretty big leap to be in the cloud and the security that sits around all that. So we actually help a lot of customers migrate their on-prem from a data center that they might be in into a cloud environment, and then we manage the environment for them in that respect as well. So it's really where the actual applications sit are pretty indifferent to us.
I'm here with Matt Stava from Spinnaker Support, talking about third-party software support and maintenance options. We've got a lot more to cover with Matt, but first we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control. People oftentimes ask me how I built such a strong social media following on YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook and other outlets. And the fact of the matter is it took me a long time to build a following through a lot of trial and error, making a lot of mistakes. Had I known that there were companies out there that could help me build my brand, I would have done that a long time ago. I didn't know that, but the good news is that there is today a consulting firm that will help you through building your own personal brand through some of their training programs. The company is called Roloff Consulting, and if you're familiar with Emma Roloff, she's someone that I've had on this podcast before, and she's well known in the digital transformation space as well as the sales space, and she's big on TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And she and her husband have started a training course and a training company that focuses on helping people build their personal brands and helping them to sell themselves digitally. So whether you're a salesperson that's trying to reach more customers or you're an individual that's just trying to build your personal brand, that's something that they help with through their training programs. And they've offered listeners of this podcast a free 5-day LinkedIn challenge. And I encourage you to check it out. I've included a link below for this podcast. If you go to the podcast notes, you'll find a link that gets you free access to this 5-day challenge where you'll get step-by-step guidance. You'll get real results. So you'll get some tangible results from the program. And you also get a special offer at the end of it. So it's exclusive to listeners of this podcast. Be sure to check out the link below if you want to work on building your personal brand, or if you're in sales and you're trying to reach more people. Whatever the case may be, check it out. It's free to listeners of this podcast. You can check it out via the link below.
Interested in working for a company that truly values your unique skills and experience? Here at Third Stage, we don't hire based on resumes alone. We look at the full candidate, experience, and willingness to provide excellent service for our clients. Within a technology, independent, and agnostic consulting firm, you have the opportunity to learn across industries with a diverse group of clients. Our consultants also have the opportunity to diversify their portfolio and learn across technology systems. If you're interested in joining a high-growth entrepreneurial organization, please reach out to us at work@thirdstage-consulting.com.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode 179. My name is Eric Kimberling here at Darian Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. And the show is sponsored by Third Stage Consulting, which is an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. And I'm here with Matt Stava from Spinnaker Support. We're chatting about third-party software support and maintenance options. Here's an interesting question from Ellie on YouTube. Ali said, and this is a great question. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are, Matt, but which specific off-ramps do people use the most? And you were talking about off-ramps earlier, and I think this is a follow-up to that. But which specific off-ramps do people use the most? What do they eventually switch to? So do you have like is there a pattern or a theme you see with your customers? I'm sure every customer is different, of course, but are you seeing any patterns?
From my foxhole, you see a lot of, I would say, JD Edwards kind of moving into an SAP space. Like just from our foxhole, we kind of see it from that perspective. But they say they're going to do something like that. They take the off ramp of moving off the vendor support, saving a couple bucks, trying to take that control back on the roadmap. And then they realize that roadmap might change in 2, 3, 5 years. And so they may make different decisions at that point. Some people say, I'm going to run this JD Edwards version until it just dies, right? Until it literally falls over and I've got to go do something. They'll obviously change before then, but just run that as much as they can and then add in what I'll call more of the business value on top of it. It could be digital transformation. It could be AI solutions. Lots of things companies are trying to fund and find out there to implement and add business value. Changing your financial system from a JD Edwards to an SAP, it's not a huge amount of value to these companies. So it's a little bit of what we run into that's helpful.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
So we talked about supporting customers who might be struggling with vendor deadlines. I want to come back to that just for a second, though. Yeah. Do you see a lot of customers that you're working with now that are able to extend their timeline or their upgrade timeline to where they sort of get that breathing room to say, hey, SAP saying 2027, but Spinnaker has sort of given us a lifeline here to give us at least till whatever timeline we want.
You hit the nail on the head, Eric. That's exactly what it is, right? So 2027 is just 3 years from now, right? And so it's coming at them very quickly. To make a change like this it's got budget implications, obviously approval implications, it's got regulatory implications. There's a lot that goes into switching out your mission critical systems that really run and operate the backbone of your company. And so the being able to have that, again, that roadmap back into your own hands is really important. But that timeline is really irrelevant to us, if that makes sense. I mean, in many ways, it's just something that, again, if you make the switch over to Spinnaker, SAP, they put this timeline out. It may push a year or two, but they've got to put some fences on this thing to get people to move, right?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, our SAP group is busier than they've ever been in their lives right now with these customers saying, hey, I don't want to be tied to that timeline. What can you do for me? And so those are conversations we're having all the time. But there's a huge lifeline here, a huge off ramp that they can take control, and that 27 date comes and goes, and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've seen that stat. I think it was Gartner or McKinsey that said that roughly 2/3 of ECC customers have not yet started their migration to
That's right.
S/4HANA. So you've got 2/3 of the market that, to your point, probably isn't going to get there. They're probably not going to get there by 2027. So
I don't even know if there's enough consultants out there to help do this. You're talking
No.
about tens of thousands of companies that have
Yeah.
got to make this change. So
Yeah.
the market itself, right? I know the big SIs are obviously out there trying to put the teams together, but it's massive.
Yeah,
It is
they're going to be
massive. So,
inevitably they'll be scraping the bottom of the barrel at some point to get
Yeah.
the consultants they need to handle that sort
that's
of
exactly
artificial.
right. Yeah,
like,
and then it gets delayed and all kinds of. It just you introduce a lot of risk into a company, right? And so that's another thing we talk to CIOs is you can make a change, but the risk that you're taking on and the lifeline that CIOs actually have, or the lifespan, if you will, is short. There's all kinds of statistics out there that there are 2 or 3 years and they get rotated out. So the risk you're introducing into your company versus the value you're getting out of it is something that is really is being evaluated pretty heavy. And that's what McKinsey's opining on, and Gartner and Forrester and these guys.
Yeah. You said it really well too. I think that's the way organizations need to think, especially if you're more of a, on a continuum, you're more of a risk adverse organization. That's not a bad word. I don't think that's a bad thing to be risk adverse. I mean, if you're a heavy regulated industry or you've been around for decades and you have a lot to lose, you're going to be more conservative. And why take on the risk? Like you said, if you can find this lifeline that gives you a more conservative approach to how you go about it and lets you operate on your timeline. I mean,
it's really a balance of risk versus reward, right? I mean, it's how much are you going to, what value are you going to get out of migrating these systems that are really just backbone systems, if you will, versus taking some savings, having a better support solution, de-risking your business, and adding value on digital transformation, cloud software, whatever it is you want to go do that adds a lot more value to the business than a new financial system or a new manufacturing system.
Yeah.
Very painful to do that.
Yeah. I have a feeling you and I are making many in the vendor community cringe a little bit right now as we have this conversation.
No doubt about it. But I'm used to it, Eric. It's the business I'm in, so I'm kind of used to it.
You're foiling their plans. It's like, damn it, Matt, we want everyone on this new system by 2027, and you're not supporting our message here.
We're a terrific off-ramp, but there's a few other vendors out there too, but it gives options to the market. And that's what's cool in talking to these CIOs. They just love to have that control back in their own office and not being driven by somebody else or a vendor of all things, right? So
yeah.
Well, and it's very big and very powerful. So
yes, and you're bringing up a whole nother thread I wasn't planning on asking you about necessarily, but I think it's important to mention it or sort of build on what you just said. That vendor lock is a real thing. When you move to the cloud now, I mean, companies are already struggling with vendor lock as it is, because if you've got one big ERP vendor providing all of your applications for your entire company, that in and of itself is somewhat of a vendor lock. Mm-hmm. But now if you move all that stuff on-prem to the cloud, they control everything. That's even more vendor lock. So you're sort of offering this option to sort of put control back, sort of balancing the power out a little bit here, which I think is what is needed. I think there's too much power concentrated in the software vendors right now.
It's a lot. There's no doubt about it. And some of the companies, what I'll say too, is the sophistication and the regulatory, entity, the regulated industries out there are making these switches as well. I mean, and I'm going to be truthful with you. 3 or 4 years ago, I would have never thought large banks would come over, or federal government, not the US, but in Europe and in Asia. We've got federal governments moving over to third-party media. You have some very sophisticated clients out there that are very risk adverse and highly regulated, still making this change. It's incredible. So it's fun to watch.
Yeah, it's a perfect segue into another great question from Ali. Which industries are pushing back the most? You mentioned banking and finance. It was an industry maybe that's lagging a little bit that you didn't expect to come over to this third-party support model. But are there other industries that you think are more ripe for it or less ripe for it relative to one another?
I think if you're in a high-tech environment, a fast-growing business, if you're an Apple, an Nvidia, those types of environments, it's probably not the best move at that point because you're growing so fast. Lots of acquisitions or some company kind of doing those types of strategic moves. The clients we're seeing a lot of banking customers come over. We're seeing a lot of telecom, like huge telecom businesses making these changes as well. Massive brand name telecom companies that you would know making this change. A lot of manufacturing, distribution, and really what's picked up in the last couple of years for obvious reasons is retail. The suffering that the retail industry has really had. We've got a lot of great brand names in the retail industry, big box stores that you drive by and you see everywhere, or in the mall stores. So those are some of the big industries that we see kind of making the change right now. But if you're in the acquisition binge market and you're growing like a weed, or lots of change going on, it's probably a little bit more difficult because you got to manage the license counts and all kinds of stuff like that when you make this change.
Yeah, makes sense. Here's another comment from Ali. He's on a roll here with this commentary, but he's doubling down on our comment earlier. But he's saying it's great to see the free market pushing back against monopolistic practices. I was thinking about using that word, but I thought, that's a little strong. But I'll hold off. But I'm glad Ali brought it up.
But Ali did it.
Yeah, exactly. Now my hands are clean. I didn't say the word, but it is kind of monopolistic, and you guys are providing an option in the free market.
Yeah. And
then he says the dealer service analogy is perfect, which I agree with.
Good. Yeah.
So let's talk about lawsuits in the space. This is a super interesting topic because those that have followed this space for a while, and obviously you and I have been in the space following it even before Spinnaker came around. There's been some lawsuits over the years. One relatively recent one being Rimini Street, where vendors sue third-party support providers. Can you tell us a little bit about the legal landscape and how that has settled itself and how it affects your strategy going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question, and it's one that comes up almost every time. I'll give the analogy of driving down the street. If the street sign says 25 miles an hour, then you go 25 miles an hour, right? That's the speed limit. Right. Even if it's a wide open street, nobody's on the street, anything, it's still a 20, that's the law, right? And so if you go 35 because you think you should be able to, you're going to have a problem. The lines are very clear with respect to the IP, and that's where the lawsuits are, is the IP side of the house, of what you can and can't do, right? We don't own the IP, so I can't develop a solution, for example, inside one customer's systems, take that solution back out and share that with other customers. I'm actually technically reselling that software because I don't own the software. If you implement something into somebody's system, whether they are on third party or not, technically the vendor owns that. It's called derivative code. They don't know they own it. It's not, published or anything like that, but it sits within that. And so you've got to be very careful on pulling stuff out and doing other stuff with it. That's really a lot of the lawsuits, that have kind of gone. The lawsuit has been going on, I think, with Rimini for, 12 or 14 years at this point, something like that, 11, 12. There's probably lawyers that have never had another case that they've dealt with. From Spinnaker's perspective, I'm not going to opine on Rimini's lawsuits or where they stand with that. I really don't know. I don't follow it every day. Right. But from our perspective, we know where the line is. It's very, very clear. It's something that we've talked to Oracle about in the past, of where those lines are, what we can and can't do. It's very obvious what we can and can't do. And so we don't need to do anything that even comes close to a violation of IP. We have an IP policy that all of our folks sign and understand. We work with our clients on that. If they send us a snapshot or a screenshot of IP, something that Oracle owns, we actually go back to them. We quarantine that thing and we go back to them and say, hey, don't send us anything like that. We don't want those in our own systems. And so it's very clear, and customers love to operate within those boundaries as well. They respect that, and we certainly respect the heck out of it as well. And it hasn't affected anything from an operations perspective or our delivery capacity.
So just to be clear, to summarize, make sure I'm following you, the lawsuits and the legal issues that have existed in this space are not because of the model itself. It's not because you're a third-party provider providing support that vendors typically provide. It's because there's some sort of IP infringement or that line that's being crossed. And that's, as long as you don't cross that line, you're good. So there's not a legal issue of having third-party support.
No, the model itself, Safra Katz herself has come out and said the model's valid. I understand it. Companies can use third-party as a tool. I'm not sure she is excited she said that, or probably regrets a little bit of it, but irrespective of that, it's not the model at all. That's been fully validated. There's no issue there. It's really how you do it. And that's no different than almost any industry out there. There's unscrupulous practices, and I just don't need to see those. We don't have any issues with those.
I'm here with Matt Stava from Spinnaker Support, talking about third-party software support and maintenance options. I've got a lot more to cover with Matt, but first we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control.
I used to rule the world, Caesar rise.
Hi, this is Eric Kimberling with Third Stage Consulting, and I want to invite you to join our annual tech agnostic conference called Digital Stratosphere. Digital Stratosphere is a conference that features some of the industry's brightest minds, greatest thinkers, and it's a great opportunity to network with peers, other industry people, other CIOs, other project team members that are going through digital transformations or ERP implementations. We've got a great lineup of speakers this year. It's a 3-day event, a lot of great entertainment, networking opportunities. I'll be there as one of the keynote speakers, along with some of my favorite speakers in the industry as well, both within Third Stage Consulting, but also outside the company as well. So I encourage you to check it out and learn more. You can go to stratosphere2024.com to learn more about the event. You can see the agenda, the way it's shaping up, and you can see some of the past testimonials of people that have attended. And the event is October 2nd through the 4th, 2024. It's going to be based in Denver, Colorado, downtown Denver, beautiful downtown Denver in the fall, which is a great time to visit Denver if you haven't been. Again, stratosphere2024.com. Check out the agenda. Check out our early bird pricing for passes. And the other beautiful things, if you can't be here in person in Denver, which we hope you can, but if you can't, you can also join remotely as well. We have virtual passes available as well, so you're able to join from wherever in the world you might want to join from. So stratosphere2024.com, check it out, and I hope to see you there.
The last thing you want to have happen is for your digital transformation to end up in court. I've been doing this for 20 years and I have seen everything. My name is Marcus Harris. I'm a software and technology attorney focusing my practice on drafting and negotiating software-related contracts and litigating software disputes across the country. Feel free to reach out to us at taftlaw.com. We'd love to talk to you about the litigation process and what you can expect.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode 179. My name is Eric Kimberling here at Darian, Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. And the show is sponsored by Third Stage Consulting, which is an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. And I'm here with Matt Stava from Spinnaker Support. We're chatting about third-party software support and maintenance options. It seems like if you're a vendor and you're really thinking long-term, it seems like you would want to build this robust ecosystem of third-party providers. And I think vendors are recognizing in some ways where a lot of vendors are creating these third-party app platforms where, they're inviting and opening up their platforms for others to create apps in their system. And they're not necessarily, they are benefiting directly and indirectly, but it's not necessarily the IP of that software vendor, but they're creating this ecosystem of third-party app developers. Certainly the SIs have always been around.
Yep.
Why not add third-party, embrace the third-party support option, knowing that if your customers are getting more value and not saving as much money or not paying as much money, getting a better ROI, why not encourage people to get more value and lower cost out of the product that you sold them as a vendor?
Yeah, it's a pretty simple business model, right? It's a faster, better, cheaper model, right? And you really do get a lot of value out of moving to it. And part of it is the value of the support itself and how great we are and all that other stuff. But at the end of the day, it's that control that they have now. They got out of that vendor lock. Now they have their own. I see a question out there on this, right? That you've got this vendor lock going on, and if you're paying maintenance, they're going to expect you to move on. And so I think it's really the control aspect is something that should not be overlooked at all. I think that's probably one of the biggest hidden benefits out there, if you will.
Yeah. And back to that question for Megan on LinkedIn, are there other ways? Obviously, having third-party support and maintenance is one way to sort of mitigate that vendor lock dynamic. Is there any other tips or suggestions you see your customers taking advantage of?
Well, yeah, I think that, what we see from our foxhole is customers will move to a third party. They'll come to us. We'll start talking to them about their landscape, what their strategy is. We really become part of that conversation with them, help them through some of the technical elements of that. But then you see people move maybe from an Oracle database to a Postgres, right? Some open source database solutions out there. So we're seeing quite a bit of that. So they start taking pieces and parts of their Oracle or SAP landscape and moving those to open source solutions, third-party maintenance solutions. They take the hardware, put it to third-party hardware providers out there. There's some terrific ones out there that have grown a lot over the last couple of decades as well. So they're doing, I would say, more pieces and parts of their landscape are moving to different vendors, if you will.
Yeah. Makes
People aren't thinking I need Oracle for everything or I need SAP for everything. that mindset has been shifted quite a bit, and we provide sort of that off ramp, if you will, to help them make that shift.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the questions I had for you, which I think we've covered pretty well, is what are some of the benefits of third-party support that Spinnaker provides? You talked about cost savings, more value out of your existing investments in technology, mitigating vendor lock, or any other sort of high-level benefits you'd point to that come from the third-party support model?
I think it's just that refreshing element of that vendor lock and having that roadmap and control, right? And I think that, the CIOs understand that more than anybody. The CFOs really understand the money side of it. And when you combine those two things, you really have a win-win for these companies as they go forward. The support and our service delivery and what they get out of us is sort of a huge benefit as well. I mean, we've become an extension really to these IT departments. You can take some of your best and brightest IT folks inside your own business, move them onto more strategic projects and trying to manage or maintain software and databases and things like that. Move that to us. We'll take that on. And they've got their talent that can go do some more more important things inside their business. They know the business processes. They know the politics. They know what they need to get done and how to get it done. They can use vendors obviously on the outside to help them do some of that stuff. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is very cool. How do you see the third-party support model evolving with the evolution of the cloud, and as more customers move to a cloud and especially public or multi-tenant SaaS solutions? How do you see your business model and the overall third-party support model evolving, since more, like I said, we're moving towards more of a vendor lock system with these multi-tenant SaaS solutions that are going to be all in the cloud now?
Yeah.
How does your business model evolve, or how do you see it evolving with that?
It's interesting. We had a study done by PwC maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And, there's this concept, is this a melting ice cube? Is this market going to just melt down to nothing at some point? There's still, we talk about the mainframe systems out there. There's mainframe systems all over the world still running, So the tail on these things is incredible. As the cloud becomes more and more mainstream, I'll call it, multi-tenant SaaS products out there, what we're seeing is it's certain solutions that are moving to that. Supply chain solutions, HR solutions, self-service, things like that. So what we're really finding is the financials, manufacturing, just these really backbone ERP systems are just residing on that on-prem. They may move them to a cloud environment in order to gain some efficiencies from a cost perspective. But those licenses are their perpetual licenses are really sitting around for quite a while. So it's, I think as the cloud market grows, so does the third-party maintenance market, if that makes sense, because companies are saying, well, I don't know what cloud I'm going to go to. I don't know if there's a cloud out there yet for a $50 billion oil company, right? Can they really handle what we have? And so it's just created a lot of open doors for us and a lot of phone calls with us and meetings on the prospect side to talk through what those really options are. So I think as the cloud grows, the maintenance market grows, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough. Yeah.
I also wonder if, like a pendulum swing that we've seen in this industry over the years, I wonder if that, obviously the pendulum is swinging pretty hard towards cloud and SaaS, but I wonder if 10 years from now, as people step back and look and say, wow, I'm spending a lot of money on the SaaS solution, and it kind of sucks being locked into this vendor even more than I already was before.
Yep.
I kind of want to think about this on-prem thing again. Maybe, a part of me wonders if that pendulum swings back a little bit and settles somewhere in the middle to where cloud's not going to go away. I don't think, obviously. There's too much money and momentum and technological advances in that space, especially with AI and everything. But I do wonder if there's certain pockets that will push back on cloud longer term, to where they do want to have like a more, not a custom dev solution, but something that they can tailor themselves and create a competitive advantage, and not just have a public cloud that everyone else is using. It's okay for financials maybe, but if you think about like your customer service or your product development, product lifecycle management, things like that, it might be more compelling to have something that's unique to you that gives you an advantage. So I could see like there being a constant market grow, potentially even growing for that type of support for different applications that do that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, you might have a pendulum swing back to more of an on-prem, environment. Or I personally, again, from our foxhole, Eric, we're not really seeing a lot of interest in moving some of the core applications out there into the cloud.
Yeah.
So
same here.
You said you have the vendors, announce that they've got all these cloud solutions, they've got all these cloud licenses. I'm not sure, and I think there's a lot written about this. It's not just opinion from me, but how much of those are really getting implemented? How much of those are really getting put into action, or if they're just sitting kind of on the shelf, so to speak?
Yeah. What about, here's an interesting question that I hadn't really thought of. This is from Megan on LinkedIn. And she says, when companies use parts of Oracle along with other systems, how do you see that combination working together? Is there more of a benefit of doing so? And maybe I'll broaden that question a little bit and just say, do you guys, if you've got an Oracle customer that you're providing third-party support and maintenance to, do you also address the other apps that bolt on to the Oracle EBS or whatever the solution is?
Yeah, I think there's a couple parts to this question, but most definitely, right? So if something, Oracle's been around 30, 40 years. I don't really know exactly, but it's been around forever. And the systems are pretty well built. And there's not a lot of like true maintenance issues inside an application or a database. Other things happen to it, right, that make it go down. If a company can't run AR or AP, it's probably something that happened inside. So it's probably a data corruption issue, an integration issue, data in that corrupts the system and makes it fall over or go bump in the night. So to me, we're not just maintaining the Oracle system or the SAP system. We're also helping them with all the integrations that go on. And so that's a little bit of a broadening of the service that we have that the vendor doesn't provide. Something like that happens, they say, hey, call your consulting firm, right? Then you've got to bring a company in, you've got to get them up to speed on what you do. Meanwhile, you can't run payroll, or you can't run, AP. I mean, you've got some real significant, P1 type issues that go on. And if we're already there, we know how to solve these things. Again, generally it's kind of a data corruption issue or an integration issue or a report can't run. Those are the things we step into and help. But the core application itself doesn't really break, so to speak, right? It's pretty well built by the vendors.
Well, I'm glad we got to that. I'm glad Megan asked that because I wasn't aware that you guys provide the support to integration to other systems and things like that. It's a great point because I imagine a lot of people are in that sort of not best of breed necessarily, but that whatever you want to call it, the 2-tier ERP model. Where
you run Oracle. That doesn't mean all your applications are going to be on Oracle, right?
Right.
And you've got a lot of things you can kind of go to.
Right. Yeah. What about we started to touch on this in this last question about how you think the third-party support model will evolve. To the extent you can share it, what are some of your other future strategies you're working on, and where do you see, where are you taking Spinnaker in the future beyond where you are today? Which by the way, congratulations on your success. You and I met. We didn't talk about this at the beginning. We talked about it before we went live here, but you and I met 15 years ago probably, and you were just starting out. It was close to 15 years, and you were just starting out. And Spinnaker was sort of a really up and coming, high growth thing, but nothing like it is today. You hadn't gotten into the support and all the stuff you're doing now. So congratulations on that growth, because you guys have done a great job. But where do you see it going from here as you look to the future?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of avenues, right? I think that we can, and we're evaluating these avenues all the time, quite frankly. But our core right now is Oracle and SAP. We have some other applications out there that we do services for as well, like Postgres and some things like that. All those are on our website if you want to go take a look at it. Microsoft, I think, is a big market out there that we've just started to scratch the surface on a little bit. We have a lot of customers asking us about that. And you probably know more about this than anybody, Eric. VMware and the change that they've made here with Broadcom and that acquisition has caused a lot of angst in the market and inquiries on what we could do around VMware. So we're evaluating several different packages to move into that might be really driven. And this is really how we've grown. It's really been customer demand. We had the JD Edwards Group, I don't know, going back to 08, I said, and somewhere kind of in the early 12, 13, somewhere in there, we had one CIO call up who was a JD Edwards customer at one point, and she had moved over to an Oracle shop and said, you're going to do Oracle. You're going to figure this out. Here's a contract to do it. And that's what really launched us into the whole Oracle space going back to 2012, 13. And so we get that pull demand from our customer base. So I spend a lot of time talking to CIOs, talking to their groups on what their issues are, what they're faced with. And so there's a couple of global markets we're entering too as well, and that we haven't really been into. We've got a lot of partnerships in the world. I got to give a big shout out to IBM, probably one of our best partners out there, and it really saves them. It's a huge partnership that we're able to do globally with them. where they save a lot of money for their customers by leveraging something like us, give that value back to that customer, and then use those funds to go do other stuff with those customers they've got. So great partnership there. We're expanding our partnership opportunities with a lot of companies out there that have client relationships that want to try and participate in this market. So it's kind of partnerships, it's software and different packages out there, and it's markets that we're not into as well from a geography perspective. So we're busy kind of at the strategy level, kind of working all those things out. But as we roll them out, we'll make those announcements.
Right. Sounds great. Well, that's cool. That's exciting. I mean, there's so much changing in this space, and who knows what the market's going to look like in 10 years. I mean, as much as you and I have experience in this space, I don't think you or I really know what's going to happen here in 5 or 10 years, and it creates a lot of opportunity for
it really does. It's I think the trend that I'm seeing, Eric, from a growth perspective, is the size of the businesses, the complexity of the governments and the companies that are bringing and entertaining and moving over to a third party. 8-10 years ago, it was smaller manufacturing, smaller retail, and now you've got the first and the third largest bank in Australia. I mean, you've got some massive organizations, highly regulated organizations, and they're making the move. So that trend is just continuing. Large telecom companies are making the change, and so it's the size and breadth of those customers is something that's pretty cool to watch, but certainly something we can handle, and it's been fun to manage those. So.
Yeah, that's great. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have for organizations that are trying to decide if third-party support is right for them? Do you have some criteria that you look at, or that when you're selling or when you're qualifying a potential customer? Are there certain traits that they tend to have, or things that you look for that suggest they might be a good fit for third-party maintenance and support?
Yeah, part of it is, what's the strategy of the organization? Like, what direction are you trying to go in? Are you trying to maintain what you've got and add to it from a digital transformation or other applications, other value-added business drivers into your organization? Or are you upgrading all the time? Are you on an 18-month upgrade cycle? That would maybe not be a great fit for us. Like, not every company is a perfect fit for third-party maintenance. And I'll say that out loud. I know my marketing group probably doesn't really like that, but at the end of the day, you've got to be in the right spot at the right time, and I recognize that sometimes it takes a year or two, because these are annual cycles, right? So if you have an annual contract with an Oracle or an SAP and you sign up for that, there's really nothing you can do until that annual cycle ends again. So I would suggest 3 to 6 months before that maintenance end date. It's a very important date. SAP 99 point something% are all December 31st, and you've got to give 90-day notifications. So right now, kind of April through August is really decision time for those organizations to really evaluate it. So, we're not an organization that beats down the doors, that calls above you. We're just open to conversations. I want to entertain and understand, help you understand what the options are in the market. Talking's free. Learning is free. There's really no reason not to just give us a call and really kind of explore what the options are. Like I said, we're not going to bang the doors down and really try and drumbeat the whole phone systems and things like that. We're pretty respectful to everybody. Everybody gets sold to, but what we're trying to do is just educate.
Right. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And actually, while we're wrapping up here, Matt, I'm going to put a QR code up on the screen, top left corner of the screen, for those of you watching this podcast, and we'll include it in the podcast show notes for those of you that are listening. But if you scan the QR code here, there's a free download that you guys have provided at Spinnaker. And the download, I couldn't fit it in the title here, but it's called What IT Leaders Need to Know About Third-Party Oracle and SAP Support. So if you want to learn more about, kind of what this third-party support model is and how it works and what some of the advantages are, a lot of the stuff that Matt and I have talked about, but even more detail, check out this white paper that Spinnaker has made available to us. So thank you.
Like I said, and you asked about this, I encourage, of course I encourage this, but encourage you to reach out to us. We've got a lot of Gartner papers, third-party, validation documents and collateral that might help you guys, help companies understand what the market is, what we can do, what the options really are. Again, we're not a heavy sales organization where we're going to just pound the phones on you. We're just really an education group, right? And that's really what our organization's kind of built around in terms of just educating the market. You make the decisions you make, and it's not something we can talk you into, but this is something that is an option I think should be evaluated, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And this collateral will help, and then we've got a lot more on our website, and we can share a lot more kind of that we've got, we can't put on the website necessarily, that we're happy to distribute.
Happy to have a conversation and chat about it.
Yeah.
And then last question I have for you then is you're evaluating potential third-party support options like a Spinnaker or one of your competitors. What are some of the criteria buyers should be using to say, hey, is this the right vendor for me to provide the maintenance and support I need?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, can they maintain the systems? Do they have companies that are doing this as well? I think for our perspective, education is really important, but references are really important, right? So we really encourage companies to leverage our references out there. And I know we give all the best references, and I know that's kind of the what everybody says, but CIO to CIO, they learn a lot and they talk a lot. And so I encourage that as part of this process as well. But I think also, culture is important. And we kind of beat that drum pretty well that, we want to work with you guys. We want to be a partner with the company, not a vendor to the company. We're going to work well with your organization. We are culturally a great fit for many organizations. We work well with other third-party vendors out there that work with like a managed services group. If they've got one of the large, managed services groups, we work well with them. We're not a sharp elbow, they did it, it's their fault, not us. We're all here to work and make it successful for the companies. And that culture permeates through our entire organization, and that's been a benefit to us.
Yeah.
I think it's really important for companies to understand that.
Yeah. And to evaluate that as part of their
sure.
process, for sure. So this resource right here, I'm trying to figure out where my finger needs to be right there, is that you scan that QR code if you want to learn more about this third-party support model. And again, if you're listening, we'll have it in the show notes. Beyond this white paper, which you guys have provided, I've also included another link in the notes about just learning more about third-party support. So you can download this white paper here. There's another link below for another resource that Spinnaker has provided. So giving you ample stuff to get started on your research journey here as you consider, or at least think about how could third-party support and maintenance fit into our overall roadmap. But beyond that, Matt, how can people connect with you? How do they learn more about Spinnaker? What are our next steps?
Yeah, hit our website for sure, and reach out to us. There's ways to get in touch with us on the Contact Us page. Very easy to find, very easy to fill out a form. Again, we don't dump that. We don't sell that. We don't put you into a spam, operation around here. So feel free to reach out, put a Contact Us in there, and I'll have somebody reach out to you guys right away and just have a conversation. Again, kind of education is really an important element here. It's not we're not a great spam operator around here, and nor will we ever be. It's just not what we do. So don't feel shy about putting an email in there. We'll get back to you and try and set some time up. So.
Thank you again, Matt. Great conversation. Really appreciate having you on the show. A great first-time guest. Love to have you back on at some point in the near future. We've got a lot more to cover, though, related to that conversation. We want to debrief on some of the stuff that we talked about with Matt and I. And then stay tuned also, because we're going to come back and also talk about the top business processes that are most important for you to document and focus on during your digital transformation. So stick around. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control.
Just tell me what you've got to say.
I'm excited to share our newly released 2024 Digital Enterprise Operations Report. This free download is available on the Third Stage website at thirdstage-consulting.com. This report is truly packed full of technology-independent and agnostic insights for your project to ensure that you're strategically optimized for success. Download your copy today with the QR code in front of me, or visit our website for more details.
Hi, this is Eric Kimberling with Third Stage Consulting and your host of Transformation Ground Control. I want to encourage you to read our Guide to Organizational Change Management. It's a free report or a free guide that we published. It's one that I actually wrote that talks about best practices and lessons learned as it relates to change management. So as you know, on this podcast, we cover a lot of stuff related to the human sides of change, organizational change management, including training, communications, org design, all kinds of stuff as it relates to change management. So if you're trying to learn more about change management, or you're looking for more direction and ideas on how to get started on your change management strategy and your overall journey, be sure to check out this guide. You can read it by scanning the QR code on the screen in front of you, or in the links below for this particular podcast episode. You can find a link to take you to the page that will allow you to register to go ahead and download that and read it for free. So be sure to check it out. It's the Guide to Organizational Change Management, written by yours truly. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think, and hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode 179. My name is Eric Kimberling here at Darian Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. So, Darian, we just had Matt on the show from Spinnaker Support. What were some of your thoughts and takeaways as it relates to third-party support and maintenance options out there?
Yeah, I think it was really good to have a different perspective, I think, on here in a third party light. I think it's something that we haven't talked about lately a lot. So it's definitely good to be able to hear what all the options are for when your company is going through a digital transformation or an implementation or anything, and how they can support your company. So that was all great. But I do want to I know you asked him a lot of questions. I do want to get your opinion on a few things here, just to follow up the conversation and see what your takes are on things. So the first one I am really curious about is, how do you think, I know we heard how Matt thinks the third party model will kind of evolve in the next few years, but how do you think it'll evolve in the next few years with the widespread movement of ERP systems to the cloud?
Well, I think it's a great opportunity for companies like Spinnaker to provide this third-party support. And it's a great option. It's a great alternative for companies to consider because, like we talked about earlier in this episode, with SAP and other software vendors out there really pushing hard to create both incentives and to move to the cloud and disincentives to stay on-prem, and time-based incentives and disincentives, it's putting a lot of pressure on organizations that may not be ready to go through transformation. If you think about it, think about an organization that's going through a bunch of acquisitions, for example. Like say they have got private equity money and they're out acquiring companies, trying to integrate these companies. And the last thing on their mind is, oh, I need to upgrade my ERP system, which is working perfectly fine, but it's on-prem and the software vendor wants me to move to the cloud. So I better drop some resources and redirect some money away from mergers and acquisitions and now go do an upgrade that the vendor's forcing me to do. If you think about it, it's just not a good look for the industry because every business has their own priorities. For some organizations, yes, it is time to move to the cloud and they're more than willing to do it. They were going to do it anyway. So this just sort of nudges them along. But for some other organizations, it's highly disruptive. They may be on the same system for 20, 30 years and it's working fine. It's not broken. Maybe it's not ideal. Maybe they don't have AI yet and all the other cool stuff, but it's working okay. So why mess with it? That's just one, devil's advocate school of thought there. So yeah, I think companies that are in a situation where they don't feel ready, don't have the budget, don't have the resources, don't have the capacity for whatever reason to go through a digital transformation right now, this just gives them breathing room. So maybe it extends their life cycle, their current investment in their current technologies. Maybe it extends it by a few years. It allows these cloud solutions to mature a bit more. We get through this whole burst of activity that's happening right now in the space where skills are short because there's so many companies going through transformations right now. So it gives you another option and another path that you could go down. So I think for companies like Spinnaker, I think the next several years are going to be, I would imagine, pretty bright for those companies.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. How do companies know when they need to look for third-party support?
Well, I mean, the easy answer to that is if the vendor's telling you they're going to cut off support at a certain time, or if they're telling you they're going to raise the cost of support, that might be a time to go look around. Even if you're happy with your vendor, I mean, as Matt mentioned, I mean, a lot of their customers are saving, I think he said 50 to 60% of the annual support cost. I mean, that for a lot of companies, that's a lot of money. So if you could save millions of dollars in your annual support, then I'd say that's probably a good time to go at least look at it, see what your options are, see how it compares to what you've got, and see if there's any advantage to go in that route. It can't hurt to go explore the options, I would imagine.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I know that Spinnaker provided a guide for companies to be able to recognize whether third-party support is right for them or not. So that will definitely be in the description below. If you guys are wanting to check that out or get more information about Spinnaker, that will be in there.
Yeah, be sure to check that out. It's in the links in the description or the show notes for this show. So either the show notes or the description, if you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn or wherever, you can find the link to the Spinnaker guide below. So be sure to check that out. That gives you some more info to figure out if you think third-party support might be good for you and for your organization. So be sure to check that out. So good. It was good to have Matt on. It's good food for thought, good stimulating conversation there. And we're going to continue the episode here in just a moment. We're going to switch gears totally and talk about still digital transformation, but we're going to talk about business processes. So we'll move away from third-party support and talk about business processes and how to know if what business processes are most important for you to focus on during your digital transformation. So stick around. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control.
Could you whisper in my ear?
If you are involved in any sort of digital transformation or business change initiative, you will want to download the Digital Transformation Report. With its comprehensive overview of business and technology trends and best practices, this report is a must-have guide for any transformation project or executive team. Download this free report by visiting Third Stage Consulting at thirdstage-consulting.com. You can also visit our website to learn more about us or download independent reports, videos, and other best practices. Again, visit thirdstage-consulting.com today to learn how you can take your transformation to the third stage of success.
Hi, this is Eric Kimberling with Third Stage Consulting, and I want to invite you to join our annual tech agnostic conference called Digital Stratosphere. Digital Stratosphere is a conference that features some of the industry's brightest minds, greatest thinkers, and it's a great opportunity to network with peers, other industry people, other CIOs, other project team members that are going through digital transformations or ERP implementations. We've got a great lineup of speakers this year. It's a 3-day event, a lot of great entertainment, networking opportunities. I'll be there as one of the keynote speakers along with some of my favorite speakers in the industry as well, both within Third Stage Consulting but also outside the company as well. So I encourage you to check it out and learn more. You can go to stratosphere2024.com to learn more about the event. You can see the agenda, the way it's shaping up, and you can see some of the past testimonials of people that have attended. And the event is October 2nd through the 4th, 2024. It's going to be based in Denver, Colorado, downtown Denver, beautiful downtown Denver in the fall, which is a great time to visit Denver if you haven't been. Again, stratosphere2024.com. Check out the agenda. Check out our early bird pricing for passes. And the other beautiful things, if you can't be here in person in Denver, which we hope you can, but if you can't, you can also join remotely as well. We have virtual passes available as well, so you're able to join from wherever in the world you might want to join from. So stratosphere2024.com, check it out, and I hope to see you there.
And I'll do anything you ever dreamed to be complete. Yes, I'm nothing that's wrong.
Hello, and welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 179. My name is Eric Kimberling here at Darian Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. So we have a video we want to play for you, and this is a video from my YouTube channel that I released, it's been a while now, a few months ago, but it's a very relevant video because it talks about the most important business processes to document during digital transformation. And so we do sort of a top 10 list of these are the 10 processes that are most important to really hone in on and focus on, because a lot of times organizations get caught up in analysis paralysis. They don't know how much time to spend on their processes, or they figure they don't need to spend a lot of time on processes because they're going to change anyway when they put in a new system. So how do we know, if, when, or where, how we focus on our business processes? So this video is meant to sort of give some guidance and direction of these are processes or examples of processes you'd want to focus on. And then there's other processes that fall outside of what we'll talk about in this video that maybe are less relevant, and maybe you don't spend as much time on those because they're not as, critical to your operations, or they're not big differentiators among different ERP systems in the market. So let's roll this video clip and we'll come back and talk about it. One of the key fundamental inputs into a successful digital transformation is clearly defined business processes and business requirements, and not just any business processes, but your future state optimized business processes. And this is the step in the process that a lot of organizations trip up on or get confused by or don't know how to handle during a digital transformation. Now, in today's video, I'm not going to dive into how to do business process management, although I have produced videos that cover this in more detail. In fact, if you check this video right here, this one gives you an overview of business process mapping and how to go about the process. But what I want to do today is not talk about the logistics of how to do business process mapping, but talk about when you know how you're going to do business process mapping, which business processes should you focus on. Now, it's important to clarify the ones that are most important because those are the ones you really want to go deep into, and other business processes, not to say they're not important, but you may not want to spend as much time documenting them because they're not things that are going to make or break your digital transformation. So what we'll do today is dive into those top business processes that are most important for you to document. And I'll also cover at the end of this video the business processes that you don't want to worry about documenting. So be sure to stick around till the end. Now, one disclaimer or thing to note before we jump in here is that all of these business processes will probably need to be documented at some point. Any business process that you have within your organization, you want to document to some degree. The question, though, becomes, when do you document it? How important is it for you to document early in the digital transformation? And the second part of it is, how deep do you go? How much detail do you want to get into? So every process within your organization will eventually need to be documented, but maybe not right away and maybe not in super detail. So what I'm going to talk about as I'm going through this are those processes that are so important that you're going to want to document them early, and you're going to want to document them in great detail, ideally before you've even selected the software, let alone starting to implement them. Before we dive too far into today's content, I want to invite you to learn a little bit more about Third Stage Consulting, who we are and what we do. I've included a link to a video right here that describes Third Stage in a bit more detail. It talks about our story, our history, our philosophy, our clients, our service offerings, and that sort of thing. But in general, what Third Stage Consulting does is we're an independent and tech-agnostic consulting provider. We help clients through their entire digital transformation life cycles, beginning with digital strategy, software evaluation and selection, all the way through and including implementation planning, implementation readiness, and the actual implementation itself. We're technology agnostic, so we only represent our clients' best interests. We do not represent software vendors. But having said that, we work very closely with software vendors, all the leading players that you can imagine we've worked with, both in helping clients evaluate and select them, but also in helping clients implement those solutions as well. So we have a very broad, objective, agnostic view of the market that is meant to really represent your interest as you go through your digital transformation. I also encourage you to scan this QR code right here to get access to our resource center. This resource center has a ton of information, a ton of ebooks that are free. You have access to top 10 software rankings, playbooks for how to make your project more successful, guides to change management, YouTube videos, all kinds of stuff that are going to help you through your digital transformation. So I encourage you to scan this QR code to get access to those resources. And please feel free to reach out to me directly to brainstorm ideas about your project. Even if it's just informally, you want to bounce around some ideas and get some informal advice, I'd be happy to spend some time with you. So feel free to reach out to me. I've included my contact information below. You can also find it in the description field of this video as well. Order entry is a critical business process for two reasons. One is because it's a customer-facing business process that allows you to capture what the customer wants. And secondly, because the order entry or the capturing of the order is typically what spawns and feeds into a number of downstream business processes. So order entry is a really critical business process that's really important, especially if you're a manufacturing organization. If you have a complex product or a complex offering, order entry becomes even more important, because the better you capture data on the front end of that order entry, the better your downstream processes are going to work. And just as importantly, when you're going through a digital transformation, the information you capture in the order entry can oftentimes create problems later on downstream. So it's really important that you have a clear understanding of the information that you need to capture, how you engage with your customers and capture the needs and wants of that customer, and ultimately how you capture that information in the system, so that then we can map how that information flows downstream throughout the rest of your supply chain. Similar to order entry is another business process that's around configuring, pricing, and quoting a product. And it may sound like it's the same thing as order entry, but it's a little bit different, because order entry is more of a finalized entry of an order into a system, but configure, price, quote is a way to put some logic behind how you can or how you cannot configure a product or service that you have to offer. So in other words, it's a way to automate and to put business rules in place within the technology so that it won't allow people to mix and match different components or different pieces of your product or service that don't necessarily fit together logistically. So the configure, price, and quote functionality is something that's really important from that perspective, but also because a lot of systems don't do configuring, pricing, and quoting very well. And if they don't do it very well, it may be a problem for your overall digital transformation. So this is a business process that you're typically going to want to do early on, even before you select the software. And certainly when it comes time to design and deploy the software, you want to go even deeper into that area to make sure you've really fully documented this process, as well as tested it and trained people on how that new process will work. If you're a manufacturing organization, your manufacturing processes are going to be critical to document as part of your digital transformation. Reason being, there's probably some sort of secret sauce or something unique to the product you're building that could break an ERP system or any other technology that can't handle that functionality. So this is a process you want to document in detail and have a lot of clarity on up front so that you can select the software that best fits your manufacturing and shop floor needs, and ultimately so that you can implement the software in a way that's going to support those processes. Now, some organizations will say, well, we're not going to change our business processes in the manufacturing and shop floor. We're going to use a separate MES system or some other sort of shop floor automation, and it's going to integrate back to our core ERP or digital transformation technology. That's fine if you do that, but you still have to make sure that that data flows back and that you have a clear business process for how that data will flow back to other systems. Because again, even if you're not automating that part of your business as part of this digital transformation, the data flow and interaction between your core back office system and your manufacturing and shop floor technologies are going to be critical to your operation. So you want to make sure you select and implement the software that can handle that the best. Now, a final thing I'll mention here is this process is so important because there's so many different manufacturing strategies that organizations have. Some manufacturers are producing low dollar, high volume type products where efficiency is the most important thing. Other more extreme examples might be a manufacturer that produces low volume, high dollar, highly configurable products and services. And those are two very different models, two very different processes, two very different sets of needs and ways you would deploy technology. So for those reasons too, you want to make sure you fully capture what the needs are, what your business processes are within your manufacturing and shop floor. The pick, pack, and ship process is the core fundamental aspect of warehouse management. So if you think about picking off of a shelf, packing it into a box or into a container, and then shipping it to your customer, that's what happens within a warehouse. And warehouse strategies differ from organization to organization. Some are focused on just-in-time inventory management, where it's coming straight off the production floor, out the door, onto a truck. Other organizations are make to stock, so they'll stock the goods in a warehouse and then they'll pick, pack, and ship it from there. So you want to have these business processes clearly documented. So again, you can choose and implement the software that's going to best enable that. And not every software does these different nuances within your warehouse management equally. And so therefore you want to make sure that you have fully tested and vetted the ability of the software to handle some of your unique pick, pack, and ship processes. It's always fascinating to me how many organizations implement new technologies. They get the processes worked out, they get the system stabilized, it's operational, it's working great, but executives and other stakeholders in the organization can't get the data they need out of the system. They don't have the right reporting, they don't have the right analytics, they don't have the right business intelligence tools or needs laid out. So it's really important that as part of your implementation, you look at what are those reports that are critical to our operations. What do the executives need to see? What does mid-level management need to see? What does the average frontline worker need to see to be able to do their job effectively? What are the dashboards they need to look at in real time? Those are all things that are outputs out of the system that you have to clearly define so that you don't forget about that during an implementation. And even if we back up even further, we want to make sure we have a technology stack that allows us to create those capabilities. In other words, we want to vet that the software can actually create the report that we need or the analytics we need. Once we've identified the software can do it, then we want to deploy it in a way that actually results in those business requirements. So analytics and reporting is something that should not be an afterthought. It should be treated as any other really important business process, because otherwise you just have a technology in place with the data sitting there, but no one can make sense of it. Depending on which part of the world you're in, you're going to have different regulatory requirements. Authorities in your local markets are going to tell you how you have to report certain things or how certain business processes might work. If you look at highly regulated industries like pharmaceutical, life sciences, energy and utilities, certainly government entities, there's a lot of restrictions on how business processes can and can't work. There's also a lot of regulatory reporting requirements that vary from country to country. So you want to make sure, again, that you have software that has that regulatory requirements covered and captured within their functionality. And if you're a multinational organization, you want to make sure that you've really looked into all these different nuances and needs at the different local levels throughout your implementation. And one of the biggest challenges we see with global digital transformations is the fact that the core centralized project team doesn't take into consideration some of those regulatory requirements. So it's very important to understand what they are, that you map out those processes, that when you're looking at the different locations or different parts of the world and what their needs are, that you clearly map out what those regulatory processes are so that you don't overlook them, because obviously that can be very costly long term if you don't capture those in your digital transformation. Now, I've covered a lot of business processes that generally you want to spend a lot of time on and make sure you focus on during an implementation. However, there might be other ones that are really important to you. They're part of your secret sauce. It's part of your competitive advantage. They're sort of the showstoppers or deal breakers, things that you're not willing to change just because your technology may or may not be able to handle that capability. So any business process that you materially want to change and any business process that's a core part of your competitive advantage, those business processes you want to document as well. And again, some of them I may have already talked about in this video, but there may be other processes that I haven't talked about that are very important to you that you want to capture. So if it is something that's going to be a big change to your organization or it's a big competitive advantage, be sure to document those business processes early and upfront. Now let's talk about the business processes that you probably don't need to spend a lot of time documenting, especially early in a project. In general, if I were to summarize, I'd say those vanilla business processes that are common to your competitors, they're common in other industries, and they're not really a unique differentiator to you and your organization. It's not a source of competitive advantage. You probably don't want to spend a ton of time documenting those processes, especially in the evaluation phase of new technology. So for example, accounting processes and GL processes, some basic period end close processes, accounts payable processing, accounts receivable. Those are good examples of things that probably aren't core competitive differentiators. They're things that are important. You have to do those things, but you can probably defer to whatever the technology can or can't do, and you'll probably be okay. You're probably not going to bring the operations to its knees. So you want to look at those vanilla processes that, yes, you need to make sure you deploy the software effectively and that you have clearly defined processes when you get to the implementation, but you don't need to spend a ton of time recreating the wheel and trying to redefine how that process should look when your technology can probably handle that process just fine out of the box. Now, one thing to note is even on these lower priority business processes, you're still going to have to document them at some point. You still need to have a blueprint for how you're going to deploy technology and how you're going to train people, test the software, all that stuff. So you do need to document it, but you're probably just not going to spend a ton of time getting consensus and alignment and spending time on documentation and going really deep into those processes. You might just stay at a higher level to ensure that you can test the software and train the people on the new processes rather than going super deep into it. So I hope this has given you some guidance and some direction on how to handle business processes and how to treat them differently, how to prioritize them, which ones you should and shouldn't focus a lot of your time on documenting, because after all, we do have limited resources and we can't recreate the wheel or boil the ocean as part of our digital transformation. So hopefully this has given you some good tips. For more tips on how to make your transformation successful, I encourage you to read our ebook called Lessons from 1000 Digital Transformations. This book contains a number of lessons and best practices that we have from having helped over 1,000 clients through their digital transformation journeys. And we cover business process management as one of the threads within that, but we also talk about change management and program management, architecture and data integration and other things that are going to make your project successful. So you can read that paper for free by scanning the QR code here, or you can go to the description field below and access it via the link. So that's a video from my YouTube channel where I talk about the top business processes to document during digital transformation. What were some of your thoughts from that video, Darian?
Yeah, I think that YouTube video that you did, I really appreciated how you clearly prioritized the essential business processes that companies should be following during a digital transformation. If you're a company that is maybe a newer digital transformation, this would probably be a really good resource for you to recognize exactly what you need to be focused on going into your digital transformation. So I think it's a really good resource in that way. How do you recommend balancing the need to document processes early with the flexibility required when selecting technology solutions?
Yeah, great question. And probably the easiest way I can think to describe is if you think about business processes as a hierarchy, you've got like your high level processes up top, the really super high level basic processes, but then you work your way down to more detailed granularity and detailed workflows and processes for each of those steps in the high level process. As you work your way down, that becomes more contingent or more dependent on what technology you deploy. But when you're up at the top and you're working down, like if you think of it as level 1 through 5, which is a common hierarchy that nomenclature that people use. I don't remember where it comes from, but it's level 1 would be high level macro processes. Level 5 would be super detailed, screen by screen, field by field, what exactly you do in a detailed workflow. And then, levels 2, 3, 4 kind of in between, working their way down to level 5. But if you think of it in that hierarchy, you might work your way down to level 2, maybe level 3 for some of these really important business processes during the evaluation phase of a project, because that, if you think about level 2 and 3, those processes should be the same regardless of what technology you use for the most part. I mean, there's some exceptions to that. There's some ways that technology might influence your level 2, 3 processes, but it's really down when you get to level 4 and 5. That's where the processes are heavily contingent on what software you deploy. So you can define level 1, 2, and 3 independent of technology, use that to evaluate and select the right software. Then when you go to implement it, that's when you get down to the, the more granular design of the more detailed workflows. If you skip that, a lot of times organizations skip level 1, 2, 3 and go straight to level 4 or 5 because the vendors tell them just to skip the first part because it doesn't matter. Those processes are going to change. It's all contingent on the future state processes. You're going to end up creating these detailed workflows that don't have any tie or integration back to a overarching strategy and overarching operating model. So the companies that spend the time to lay out the processes up front will end up choosing better software in general because they have a better vision of what they want, and they're able to manage the implementation better because they've already created a sort of a business process blueprint for how they want their business to look, and now they're just refining that detail as they get down to the detailed workflow. So that's probably the best way I could describe how to balance that dynamic that you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. From this YouTube video, we also had some very specific comments and questions. One of them was, but what about personalized processes in the AP and AR modules, which you say they are not critical? I'm not a fan of the finance modules, but in my current project, I have encountered myself with personalized procedures for approvals and control of payments for AP and personalized credit management for AR. This process ended up being part of the company's policies and a big issue in the project. Ultimately, these ones required customizations in our JD Edwards implementation. I think this business case may be an exemption according to your rule. This company doesn't have a process or audit department, but if they have, surely this policy would have fallen under their scope. So maybe check the audit policies first. Then can we do another check before deciding which processes are important to map? So I guess that ending part was more of a question there. Is that correct? Are they on the right page there? Or what are your thoughts?
I think they are. And it's a good reminder that, even though I create this top 10 list of top 10 processes you should focus on, every business is going to have different priorities. So, if, for example, I don't know what industry this person is in that they're referring to this project, but if they're, for example, in financial services, if they're like a bank or a financial services company, then having a lack of focus on financial processes doesn't make sense. I mean, you might actually reprioritize and say finance and accounting is really important for a financial services company. Maybe inventory management isn't that important. But if you're a manufacturing company, inventory management might be really important and finance and accounting might be not so important. So it depends on what industry you're in and what your priorities are. If you have really tight, even if you're a manufacturer and you've got really tight and deliberate credit policies that are unique to you, and it somehow, maybe it's a creative way of providing financing and credit to your customers that other companies aren't doing, then yeah, you're probably going to want to focus on that because that's a differentiator for you. And you just have to be careful that you're not using resistance to change as an excuse to not look at other ways of doing business. Now, if it's a core competitive advantage, this is, there's a real good strategic reason why we're doing this, then yes, you probably want to preserve that and make sure that the software can accommodate that. But if it's just, hey, we've just always done it this way, we have no real reason why we've always done it this way, so we don't want to change, that's a different story. And that's where you want to use change management to help pave the way for new processes and new technology. So you have to look at your situation and understand, your priorities and goals and objectives.
Gotcha. Overall, I felt like this was such a good episode. I felt like mixing in the topic of third party support is definitely super interesting and a new perspective that I definitely gained today.
Yeah, good. Well, hopefully the rest of the audience did too. It's not a real common, I'm surprised it's not more commonly understood and widespread. Although it is becoming more widespread. Certainly Spinnaker has a lot of companies like Spinnaker have a lot of customers. But I think for a lot of companies, they don't realize that it's a viable option to look at third-party support options. So hopefully it's opened up the eyes to some others as well. And look forward to hearing your feedback in the comments as far as what your thoughts are on third-party support. If you've tried it in the past, if you've looked into it, if you're using third-party support, love to hear your comments in the comments chat below. So good. Well, appreciate a great episode again, Darian. Thanks to Matt for being here today. And thanks to the audience for the great questions. Next week, we're going to talk about digital transformation in sports. So that'll be episode 180. Be sure to stick around for that because we're going to get into digital transformation in sports. We'll talk about the Indy 500. We'll talk about transformations in the NFL, the National Football League in the U.S. We'll talk about how college athletes can transform to becoming consultants. So it's a lot of sports themed stuff. So if you're into sports and you're into digital transformation, be sure to check that out. That'll be next Wednesday, episode 180. That'll be out. So hope you have a great week. We'll see you next week on Transformation Ground Control. Be sure to check us out at transformationgroundcontrol.com. Have a great week, and we will see you soon. Take care.